Okay. Welcome everybody to the 2024 annual general meeting of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada Edmonton Centre. I am Jay Lavender, and I am the current presiding president as well as your host for tonight. And we'll start this evening off with our annual general meeting, and I will call that meeting to order at 7:34. So first off, Happy New Year to everybody. Hope everybody got some good quality time and over the holiday season. So first point of order is we have the January 9th, 2023 AGM meeting minutes that were posted 11 and a half months ago. And assuming everybody has read those, I ask for a motion from the floor to accept those minutes.
I move that the 2023 AGM meeting minutes be approved as posted.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Do I have a seconder? Kent Martins, thank you. Do we have any discussion? All right, then we'll put it to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Thank you. As per usual agenda, we have our 2023 Treasurer's Report to go through, and then followed by that, we will then have our auditors come up and give us their review of the financial report. So I'm going to ask Jeff Walton to please come up. And hopefully get your...
Wow, a year has gone by. I can't believe this. When I decided to get involved with council, it was almost exactly a year ago, and I was sort of listening in the background to my first annual general meeting with the RASC, and here I am talking to you. So anyways, let's go through this together. I think this is probably one of the driest portions of the meeting that we're going to do tonight, but it's also one of the most important. This is the opportunity for the society to be transparent with its membership, to talk about its financial standing, and I'll go through this quickly, and just hit the highlights. But I think it's something that that's very important as a part of our ongoing business. And that's it. Any questions? Yes.
I just noticed the interest amount is pretty small. So interest rates can be about 5% in daily interest accounts these days. So have you looked into possibly $30,000 during the account with higher interest rates?
You know what? That's a great idea. It really is. It's for years, interest rates have been so small that we haven't thought about that, but there are surplus cash sitting around. That probably does make some sense. We'll bring it up at council.
Okay, so if there's no more questions on the financial reports, I would like to ask our two auditors, Orla Aquest and Frank Florian, to please come up.
So Frank Florian and I, Orla Aquest, did review the financial statements, and we've reviewed the financial statements for accuracy and completeness, along with random audit sampling items within the financial statements. And it's our opinion that these financial statements fairly represent this financial performance of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada Edmonton Centre for the fiscal year of 2023. That's it. Any questions? Great. Oh, yeah. So we need a motion to accept the financial report and the auditor's statement for
Bruce McGregor.
Bruce. Dave. And second, Tom.
All right.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, good candidate. It's carried.
I just want to say thanks to Jeff for all his hard work. Let's give him a great round of applause because I mean, being the treasurer is quite a task. So again, he keeps our society in really good hands here.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Orla. Thank you, Frank. And definitely thank you, Jeff. Much appreciated. So that brings us to the fourth item on our agenda, and that is we need to appoint the auditors for the 2024 audit. So it has to be obviously 2 members in good standing, and I'm calling the floor now. Are there any volunteers to do the 2024 audit? Not everybody at once, please. All right. Okay, Orla, thank you, sir. It's really not that daunting of a task. It is just reviewing numbers, adding numbers, making sure they balance. Dave Fielder, thank you very much for stepping forward. Much appreciated. Okay. So next item on the agenda, center spending limits. So not much to say here, just general information. Council members, this is according to our bylaws, council members can make expenditures less than or equal to $150. Council can make expenditure decisions for items less than $1,500, and anything $1,500 or greater, any expenditure must be advertised 30 days in advance to the membership and then voted on by the membership. Those numbers have been consistent as long as I've been here, so no changes there. Next item, committee reports. So every year, National approaches each of the individual centers asking for a annual report just on events and types of things that we've done throughout the year. And so I ask any of you that are on committees, chairs of committees, to please get a summary of your committee's events to Daisy, our General Secretary. And I don't know, is there a deadline, Daisy, for that? Ended sometime in February? All right, so sometime in February. Next item, elections. So terms are always 2 years, and we're now in the 2nd year, so there's no elections this year, and no special resolutions this year. So that's where we stand. So the final item, and really the fun part, is the President's Awards are given out every year as well at the AGM. And so we'll just start down that, and I'll call out your name, and if you could please come on up to receive your award. So, oh, I think actually I have a slide. I do. So our first award is the George Moores Memorial Award for Excellence in Public Education. And that's no easy or simple task to do. And the one individual that's really stood out this year has spent a significant amount of time developing his delivery, I will say, his videos. And his videos are very educational. They're also very entertaining. And I think anyone that's seen them knows how valuable they are. And so this year's Public Education Award goes to Mr. Jeff Robertson.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Congratulations. I'm gonna pose. All right. Oh, hey, Jeff, you get a complimentary folder. All right. So our next item, I'm not sure I've seen him here today, but hopefully he is. So our Bryce Hartwell Memorial Award for Excellence in Astro-Imaging. Oh, of course, he's not going to be here. So this individual, again, when I first met him, pretty new to the astro-imaging, pretty knowledgeable on the camera side, and has worked amazingly hard to develop his astro-imaging skills. And it's actually been quite the pleasure to watch the quality of his images progress over the last few years, to the point where everyone on the awards committee agreed that the quality of his imaging is really what we would consider professional quality. And so this year, the Bryce Hartwell Memorial Award for Excellence in Astro-Imaging goes to our very own Abdur Anwar.
Thank you, Jay. Well, I'm sure there were a lot of very deserving candidates, and I really appreciate it. It's an honor.
You bet. Well, thank you very much, Abdur. I'll put your certificate in the mail,
Thank you.
as well as your complimentary folder. Okay. Can you hold that? Thanks. Okay. Next award is our Observer of the Year, and so again, this is no easy task, I have to say. So if I can generate some sympathy for the president here. There are so many individuals here that do some incredible work around observing for our center, and even the educational side of that, plus the astro-imaging side of that. But this one individual has been very consistent in what he's provided, very focused on the information and the area that he's observed in, and to the point where he made me aware of this particular, I'll call it object. But anyway, I had never heard of NLC or noctilucent cloud before I met this fellow. And every year he does compiles a report, and in essence publishes a report on noctilucent clouds. And I think he presents just about every year the summary of that report. So this year, very happy to give Observer of the Year to Mr. Mark Zelchik. And is he here today? I'm not sure. I'll bring it back. All right. Oh, don't forget your folder. Okay. I think the next one, our Angus Smith Award for Excellence in Design, in Telescope Making and Design. And so truly a dying art. I think probably 20 years ago, there were far more candidates, I would say, for this award. But it's, again, a bit of a dying art. And but I think without question, this latest individual's project is very well known and very worthy. And so this year's Telescope Making and Design Certificate Award goes to Roman Eunuch. Congratulations, sir. Certificate. Yeah, heck of a job. Can't imagine how many hours that really took. So, okay, next award is our President's Award for Service to the Center. And again, not an easy task, you know, going through, I would say, all the information, all the people, candidates, you know, worthy of such an award. And but this individual stands out. He's been with the center longer than myself, and I would consider him to be almost one of the founding forefathers even of the RASC Edmonton Center and everything that it stands for. He was definitely in on the initial idea of an observatory for the RASC Edmonton Center, even before BNLO had happened. He was part of developing the Northern Prairie Star Party. He was, of course, the chair and critical in the development of the Black Nugget Lake Observatory and finalizing that project. He's done other amazing projects, including the Messier, is it biathlon? Is that what it's called now? So running the marathon while you were observing the Messier objects. as well as completing the Herschel 400, and quite recently in one of our meetings presented his completion of the Herschel 2500 objects. So it gives me really great pleasure to award our service to the center to Mr. Warren Finley. All right. Warren does more in a day than I do in a week. Just want to say that. Okay, so our final award this year is the Franklin Lodi Award for Project of the Year. And I think, again, this really should come as no surprise to anybody. We've talked about it quite a bit in the last couple of months, but really bringing the BNLO project to completion to a point where, you know, it is both available to members as well as the general public has been nothing less than an enormous achievement. And the amount of effort that these folks have committed to seeing that through, and I mean seeing it through to completion, has been nothing short than amazing. So I would like to ask the Black Nugget Lake committee to please come up. So that would be Alan Hobbs, Susan Rick Brom, Warren Finley, Roman. Luca's away, so I get to keep that one. No way. And Alan. There you go. How about a big hand, folks, for this group? Amazing job. Absolutely amazing job. All right. Thank you, everybody. Daisy has your complimentary folders. Sorry. Good stuff. See, I wasn't kidding. She did have them. That's Lucas. Thank you. Okay. Well, I promised it would be relatively short. And so with the President Awards out, that is the conclusion of the annual general meeting. And I will call the meeting adjourned at 7:58 p.m. So we did. Okay. So I wasn't sure how quickly we would go through things. So we have, we'll start our January monthly meeting. We have a couple of presenters. So I think what we'll do is we'll have our first presentation. We'll go through that, and then we'll break for our break. There we go. All right. So at 8 p.m., I will call the January 2024 monthly meeting to order. And just one quick piece of cleanup here. So our December 11th, 2023 meeting minutes were posted to the OneDrive. And I'm wondering if I can get a motion, please, to accept those meeting minutes.
I move that the December 11, 2023 meeting minutes be approved as posted.
Thank you. Alistair Ling seconds that. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right. Then motion is passed. Thank you. All right. So our first presenter is, again, a very well-known member, very knowledgeable member. He's also our new member advisor. And he is here to talk about our the upcoming April 8th eclipse and how to photograph and observe. So I hand the mic over to Mr. Murray Paulson.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Well, everybody probably knows me. I'm a nutcase for solar eclipses and planets and things like that. So I've traveled and seen quite a few eclipses over the years. It's number 12 for me. And so number 13 is just waiting around the corner in the next month. So I would like to invite you to come over to the dark side. How many of you have seen an eclipse? Oops, somebody's going to fix something. Okay. Back at the ranch. How many people are going to the eclipse next April 8th? Oh, it looks like we've got a good selection of people here. Excellent, excellent. Fantastic. Well, I would originally suggested a topic for one of our workshops, and that would be photographing solar eclipses. And I was told, no, give a talk. So here's the talk, and we'll go from there. Okay, we'll start off with some terminology. There's the C1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are the contacts that we have during a solar eclipse. And C1 is when the moon first touches the sun and makes evidence of its passing. And note, remember, the moon is always coming from the morning side of the sun. So all you have to do is figure out which side is the morning side, and that's the west-hand side of the sun. That's the side that the moon is going to intrude on. And then C2 is when we're right at the point where we're just completely covering up the sun. So there's just the tiniest bit of the sun left, and then blink, the sun turns dark, and we're just looking at the moon and the corona around the sun. C3 is just before the sun pops back out and blinds us. And C4 is when the moon is on its last point, just ready to lift off the sun. So the next decade of solar eclipses, I'm not sure how well this is showing up with all of these bright lights that are blasting me in the face here, but this is also known as my vacation planner, to my wife and family's chagrin. Next year, we've got 2 eclipses. Well, actually, we just had one eclipse swing down diagonally from Oregon down through Belize and out through Brazil, annular. And the next year, we will have a total solar eclipse. And that one starts down in the Pacific and rolls up to the edge of Mexico at Mazatlan. It sweeps through Texas and then up through the eastern states, and then along the border of Canada, US, and finally it goes out over Labrador into the Atlantic Ocean. So this is the great eclipse that's coming up. Everybody's going to be going down to some place to see this, because you're not going to see it here. Now, if you decide that you're going to stay here, well, from Vancouver, these are what maximum eclipse will look like at various places in Canada that are not on the eclipse track. And you can see that Vancouver gets just a little bite taken out. Edmonton's just a little bit more. Winnipeg, well, we get about 50% coverage. Toronto, the thing that you can just barely see is there's just a little tiny rim of sunlight over the top of the moon there. And so Toronto will not see a total solar eclipse. It will have a very, very deep partial, but there will at no time be a complete coverage of the sun. Ottawa, it's about the same. It's not a complete coverage, but we will get total solar eclipses in places like Hamilton, Ontario, 2 minutes long, Niagara Falls, 329, and then down the list, Woodstock, New Brunswick, and finally out at Bonavista, Newfoundland. So we've got lots of places in Canada that you can see it. So if I go back, okay, my next slide, this is what happens when you actually get to see, oh, no, okay.
Oh my God.
We're down next.
Okay, for those of you who this is the first time that your filter's off, that's camera only. When? No, when you hear filters off, that's camera only. Don't take your solar through your eye protection off until you hear C2.
This
So is it 30 seconds yet?
56 seconds.
Oh man, look at that prominence. Holy mackerel. Yeah, almost circular corona. Don't forget to look at binoculars. That's all I'm looking at. Wow. Look at those prominences. Oh wow, there's a disconnected prominence way up above the sun. Holy mackerel. Chromo. Wow. Gary, chromo.
The chromosphere of the sun is followed rapidly by really you can see the sun coming back.
Wow.
Well, that's 56 seconds.
Filters back on.
And you'd think that 56 seconds, it wouldn't be worth going half
Nope,
the world
130 photographs.
seeing an eclipse like this. But
Did it work?
I think it was the best
It was
eclipse
flicking
I've
away.
ever seen.
I'll find out if it works
Absolutely magnificent.
when I download the images.
The sun.
I don't even want to look at them right now.
Gorgeous. Because of the
You don't want to
coverage
spoil
of
them.
that.
Well, I heard it.
The structure of the chromosphere, and it was great. It was probably the most amazing clips I've seen. Okay, we have to go back. Nope, once is enough. Okay, and this shows the bright view of the chromosphere expanding, and then the Bailey's beads popping back out. So you can see the C3 or C2, and then a minute later, C3 happens. And so we'll go on to the next slide. Okay. Enough. And this one, okay. See if it starts. Nope, it's not going to start. I'm not going to fiddle around with it, tech with it. So anyway, what do you need to be able to go do this, see an eclipse and do this stuff? Well, number one, you need to know where to go. And so there's a path of totality. These things are published, and you have to be within that path of totality. You're not going to get to see the big show. You also need mobility in the case that the weather goes to hell on you, and you have to flee, maybe drive 50, 100, maybe 200 kilometers. We did that in Australia on one of our trips. We actually drove 180 kilometers to get to a better place. We saw the eclipse. The place that we left did not. You also need solar filter for your eyes, your binoculars, your camera, your telescope. And also you need a safe place to witness the eclipse from. On the side of the road might not be a really good place because people may be distracted and might run off the road and on top of you. So you want to be in a good place. Also, the roads could end up being really busy. So don't wait till the last minute until you get there. leave early and spend a little extra time at the eclipse site. Solar filters. I've got a handout that I will give a link to or put up on the our email site, but there's lots of places that have solar filters. There's Seymour Solar, Rainbow Symphony, there's Kendrick in Canada, and of course, All-Star will sell filters from these different places. So there's a good supplier right next door to us. Important websites. There's a Fred Espinac site. We've had Fred here for a talk many years ago. There's also a guy by the name of Zeidler Dome. He's out of France, and he has a Google Earth type of site where he shows the eclipse path on the Earth, and you can explore the eclipse path road by road, yard by yard. It's really, really wonderful. And last but not least, Jay Anderson's eclipse weather site, where you can decide whether or not the cloudiness could be a problem, an impediment to you actually seeing the eclipse. Here's Mr. Espinac's site, and this is the typical graphics and stuff that you'll get from his site. He shows you where the eclipses are going to be over the next millennium and has information on both lunar and solar eclipses. And this is just zooming into the totality that we're going to see in April. Next is Jay Anderson's site, and he goes into the climatology. He does the statistics over the last decade or two and comes up with predictions as to what the average cloudiness might be like during the solar eclipse. And if we look up here, that's where Niagara Falls is. That's where we get about 3 minutes, 30 seconds of solar eclipse. And you'll notice that if you look at the sidebar on the right, that matches into about 60% cloudy possibility. So there's a 60% chance of clouds in that area. Now, it doesn't say whether it's totally overcast or if it's just patchy cloud. So there's a possibility of cloud there. And you'll notice as you go farther and farther east, the conditions get worse and worse until you're up in the 80 to 90% chance of there being clouds. So maybe the East Coast is not a great place to be watching this eclipse. We also, you'll note the star there. That's where a big chunk of Edmonton is going. How many people in the room are going to that exact site? Yeah, there's a good contingent of boys. Excellent. So that's where we're going to be. And the possibility of a cloud there is probably about 45, maybe 50% at max. But it is a reasonably good chance. Alan Dyer is going to be in the area as well. And this is once again where this is a plot along the center line showing how much the statistical normal cloud is, the average daily cloud at eclipse time. And you can see where Hamilton, Niagara Falls area is. It's up in the 65% chance of cloud. We're down in the, as I say, below 50%. Now, this is Zeidler Dome's site. And what his site does is you can see there's the big text box on the side. If you click on any place on the map, it'll tell you how long the eclipse is, whether it's partial or total, and it will tell you how long the totality is, and it'll also give you the exact times of the 5 contacts of the solar eclipse. And of course, we're going to be down in the area of Texas, so you can zoom into the neighborhoods or the campgrounds that you are interested in going to, and you can actually see what the time that you're going to be given for the solar eclipse. Okay, the important thing is study your possibilities. You know, you look at the roads around where you're going to be going for the eclipse. See if you can move north or south, east or west. Can you move along the eclipse track for a better place? Because what you're going to be doing is if you get to your spot a few days in advance, you can see what the weather is like for a couple days beforehand. And then you can check the weather the night beforehand, look at the weather maps, see what your predictions are. And if it's not good, pack up your car, make sure you can move, get out either early in the morning or take off overnight to get to a better place, because you've invested this much money and time to get to see this eclipse. If it's not going to come to you, if it's totally cloudy and socked in, you're going to miss it. You're going to see the clouds get dark and get light again, but that's not the exciting part of an eclipse. And so if you know what the roads are and everything else, you can take off and you can find a good place using your weather maps and everything else. Oh dear. Okay. Okay, advice for first timers. If this is your first eclipse, how many people have not seen it, of these people that are going, have not seen an eclipse before? Oh, it looks like everybody's not a first timer. That's good. Excellent. Okay, you can dim the lights. So the important thing is, if you get out underneath of an eclipse, enjoy it. If you spend too much of your time taking photographs or stuff like that, you can easily miss an eclipse by spending your time looking at the back of a camera. People have actually had their cameras screw up on them, and they spend 4 minutes trying to get their camera working properly, and they look up as the sun starts peering back down at them. So this is a really bad thing to do. A really good thing to have around your neck is a pair of binoculars. I suggest having a pair of binoculars for each person in your group, because you don't want to be hunting around for them in the dark. It's really nice to just have them around your neck and you take a look. And the other thing to look around you. There's a 360-degree sunrise sunset. It's just great. Venus should be about 15 degrees below the sun. Okay, setups for photography. Camera on tripod. This means you're going to be constantly moving and adjusting the position of your camera during the eclipse, but it's the lightest way to get somewhere. If you're having to drag an equatorial along with you, you've got extra weights that you've got to be carting. In the right-hand frame on this one, there's a camera on tripod, but it's got an Altaz motorized mount. And so this nice little unit will track the sun, and you can program your camera or whatever to take shots, and then you can just sit back and enjoy the eclipse. And this is my prime equipment. I go with an equatorial mount, motorized equatorial mount. And on the left-hand pane, this is a camera lens system that I've used. It's a 100mm Canon lens with a 1.4 teleconverter to give me 580 millimeters of focal length. And I've got a solar filter on it. One of the things you'll note down below my tripod is a red flashlight. I always carry one. I put it on the ground nearby, and that way, when the solar eclipse happens, it actually gets so dark that if you drop something on the ground, it's lost. You're not going to find it. So if you've got a flashlight, you can just pick it up quickly and look at the back of your camera, figure out what button is what. I've actually had that happen. I'm at an eclipse. I can't see the back of my camera. I don't know what buttons I'm pushing. It's really crazy. On the right-hand pane, this is a Williams Optics refractor and a Canon 80D camera. I like the fact that I've got very few elements, glass elements inside the telescope, and the focal length of the telescope is really, really stable over a range of temperatures. I've found the problem with a camera lens, you've got sometimes 18, 20 elements of glass that are sitting inside this thing. And if you don't have them on autofocus, the focus of the camera lens can drift, and you can end up with out of focus photographs. With this Williams Optics on the right-hand pane, It doesn't have the advantage of autofocus, but it's very, very stable. And I had no trouble with that one. And one of the things I did with it, you'll notice, I've got one of these red dot finders. I took a little piece of card stock and punched a hole in it and put that at the front of the unit. And then at the back, I taped a little white piece of card on it. And when I got the sun centered in the camera, I used a pen to mark off an X where the sun sits. So this helps you find your target if you get bumped off of target or if your motor stops driving. Binoculars. Well, the best thing you can have would be image stabilized binoculars, because those binoculars will be as good as something mounted on a tripod, and they will give you a beautiful view of the sun. Second best is some light binoculars. So birding binoculars are just fine for a solar eclipse. You don't need great big huge binoculars. But then again, what the heck? On the right-hand side, you can see an example of the Lunt 8x32 sun oculars. They've actually got built-in solar filters, which you cannot remove. So they're not good for anything but the looking at the sun. They are not good for looking at totality. And then if you want to go for the big guns, well, on the right-hand pane, left-hand pane, we've got some 80x40 binoculars, and those produced a fabulous view of the 2017 eclipse. I got a chance to take a quick look through those, and that was absolutely incredible. I've got another pair of binoculars on the right-hand side. You have to make solar filters or buy them for them. And these might be going to Texas with me. You need to buy or build filters for your binoculars. If the filters do not fit well, you can use painter's tape to hold them in place. And that's a good way to keep you from getting blinded when the filter blows off if it's windy. You can also get a friend to 3D print a filter mount for your lens or your camera or your binoculars. And also, you can just go to the people that sell these filters and order them and just spend money to get them. Okay, simple photography of the eclipse. The thing I suggest is get those ambience photos. Some of those ambience photos are just wonderful. The wide angle shot with the sun and the shadows and the people and things that are going on around you. It shows the dark sky, the sunrise, sunset colors around the sun. And a wide angle shot, 24 millimeters, is quite nice. If you have 4 minutes of eclipse, I recommend spend it well. You can use a 600 to 900 millimeter lens on a full frame camera, and a 600 milli lens is sort of the biggest I would use for a 2/3 frame. That's what I do. More importantly, if you've got a lens, well, you don't really have to go out and spend another $1,000 or $2,000 on a new lens. You can probably just use what you got, and you'll get nice results out of it. You always should refocus just before totality. The heat will cause lenses to shift or drift around. If you're using autofocus, great. Just trust it. If you're not using autofocus, make sure you've readjusted your focus. And use the hard edge of the moon, because it's the only thing on the sun that's actually really sharp. The sunspots are soft. The edge of the sun is soft. Only the edge of the moon is sharp enough to get a really good focus. And you need to get yourself a camera release cable, or have it programmed through your USB to work with your computer. And I've said this before, some people have really good luck with autofocus with their cameras, and some people do not. I've heard different stories. I've used autofocus on some of my shots. Some people have good luck with auto exposure and bracketing, and I did in this last eclipse in Australia. It was just great. For Bailey speeds, you need a really high speed shot if you're unfiltered. But if you're filtered, you just shoot just a little bit longer than the full disc exposure. How much does the sun move in a particular part of time? Or do I need a rotating, a driven mount? And the issue is, if you've got just a tripod, you could actually, with a 200 mil lens, you can just point it at the sun, and the sun will not drift out of the field of view in those 4 minutes that you're seeing the eclipse. So you can decide how far you want to do it. You can set it up your shot so that the sun will just diagonally go across the camera as you take pictures during the solar eclipse. The sun is a ½ degree in diameter, and at the equinox, it moves 15 degrees an hour. And that means that the sun moves 1 degree every 4 minutes, or just its own diameter every 2 minutes. So you can plan how much space you need with your camera lens and plan it accordingly. Or you can chase the position of the sun. Sometimes I've seen people who actually lose the sun because they're fiddling around with adjusting their camera, their mount on their LTAS camera, on a tripod. That can be trouble. But the nice part about this particular eclipse is we've got 4.5 minutes worth of totality. So you do have a bit of time to fiddle around. One of the things that you might want to know is how long an exposure can you take if you don't have a driven mount. And this is a photograph I took of the night sky, 24 millimeter lens, 8-second exposure. And you can see from the right-hand pane, zooming in on Perseus, you can see most of the stars they're reasonably sharp. You can see there's just a tiny bit of egg shape to those stars. But when we go down to where the Pleiades are, they're at about 24 degrees declination. They are actually streaked. They're unpleasantly streaked, so they wouldn't make a nice photograph. So if we take the general rule of the maximum length of an exposure can be 100 divided by the focal length of your lens. So a 10 millimeter lens, you can actually shoot a 10-second exposure. And we go down through the list, 100 millimeter, 1 second, 400, 1/4 of a second. So it's pretty easy to get a decent exposure without trailing of the sun or things like that, if you keep under those limits. During the Australian eclipse, I used an Arduino, and I programmed this little thing to control my camera. And so all I had to do was push a shutter button. You can see in the controller on the right-hand pane, I had a start button. I had an LED to tell me that the thing was ready to go. And as soon as I pushed the start button, it would start taking photographs, and the button on the other side would flash for each exposure that was being shot. And I actually programmed this thing so that it would start the sequence. I'd push a button, take the lens cap off the camera, and it would shoot 3 shots, bracketed shots every second until C3 plus 5 seconds. And then it would take a shot of 1 second, one set of 3 bracketed shots every 5 seconds until, and I think I should have, in that previous sentence, that should be C2 plus 5 seconds. Anyway, then in the last set, as the sun was moving off, or the moon was moving off the sun, I had a shot every second for a 10-second period. And of course, at the end of it, it was time to put the filter back on. That was a total of 60, 70 seconds worth of shooting. And so this is the equipment, focal length roughly 600 millimeters. And this is what those bracketed shots look like. I have not adjusted the brightness, contrast, or stretched the contrast in these photographs at all. These are just camera raw, turned to JPEGs. I did increase the saturation of the colors so that the red of the prominences were more visible. It's just a good thing to do when you're doing solar eclipse pictures. But you can see, you can actually get reasonably good images with 1/5000th of a second, a 6/40th of a second, or an 1/80th of a second. So the bracketing worked just marvelously well. 66 images in 70 seconds. Well, pros, it was simple and cheap. It only cost $35 for to build the thing. And it was easy to program. You push start and forget about it. It just works. And then at the end of the sequence, you just put the lens cap or the filter back on the telescope, camera, whatever, and away you go. The cons of it are that the photo sequence, it's not adjustable without a laptop. So it's not field friendly if you have to make a run for it. So somewhere between here and there, I've got to make a revision to my equipment and to the software, and then maybe make it so I can edit it in the field. Things to bring for the Eclipse? Well, of course, your camera. You can record video with your cell phone, get a little mini tripod. It does a really nice job. I've used mine in 4K mode. You get about 5 minutes that you can shoot video for in 4K with most of the cell phone cameras. Tripods, you need a tripod for every camera that you want to be using. I actually take 2 or 3 cameras. Binoculars, 1 for each person. Solar filters for all of those units, cameras and binoculars. And it's nice to have a chair, especially if you end up having to run and you're out somewhere on the side of the road on a road allowance or in somebody's field, standing around for the 2.5 to almost 3 hour duration of the eclipse is a bit much. It would be really nice to just have something you can sit down on. And I really like the idea of having a driven equatorial to keep my camera pointed at the sun, but that's a bit of a luxury. You have to have something like one of the camera trackers or the Takahashi Teagle that I've got. Things to look for during a solar eclipse. Well, what's really neat is when the moon is moving over the sun in the last phases of it, the edge of the sun looks like a slit. It's a very, very narrow aperture spitting light out at us. And so the lighting is asymmetrical. So you'll get really hard shadows in one axis, but in axes perpendicular to it, the shadows are soft because the slit has a certain physical length. And so it's really neat to look for those kind of effects. I also noticed that the light looks kind of silvery near totality. You get crescent images of the sun projected through pinhole cameras through the leaves or through wicker chairs, colanders, or you can take a piece of tinfoil and punch holes in it and write, a message or something like that you want for posterity and have it printed in little pinhole images of the sun. It's kind of cool. You can watch the birds and animals. They all of a sudden will start thinking it's nighttime and they will prepare for night and they will, at the end of it, all of a sudden start waking up from night because, and I would imagine they're quite confused, but I've heard cocks crowing at the end of an eclipse as the sun comes back. It's kind of neat. And also the cooling down of the air is really, really dramatic. One of the eclipses I was at, there were some people, dressed in t-shirt and shorts, and I all of a sudden noticed that they had gotten beach towels and thrown them over their shoulders because they were that cold. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. It was just amazing. And you can look for when you're just before totality, you can see the shadow of the moon coming at about 3,000 miles an hour at you. So if there's little patchy clouds in the air, it's really cool because you can see a patch of cloud will be white and all of a sudden it turns dark. And then another cloud will turn dark and it's coming towards you. And you can see this big shadow in the sky projected. What it is that the sunlight is not illuminating the particulate matter that's floating around in the sky. So it's really kind of cool to look at. And do a 360 turnaround. You can see the 360 degree sunrise sunset colors. Remember that the sun is shining outside of a circle that at this particular eclipse will be about 200 kilometers in diameter. So the sunlit part of the earth is way away from you, and you get the sunrise sunset colors because that light has to travel through a thick part of the atmosphere, and it becomes reddened. And so it's a really cool thing. It's a 360 sunrise sunset is just amazing. And also take note of how dark it gets during the eclipse. It's just, it's so dramatic. It's wonderful. There's a phenomenon called shadow bands, and this is from this very narrow aperture that the sun presents just before totality and just after totality. And you'll see these wiggly lines, but you need to put down say a sheet, a bed sheet or something like that on the ground and look for it just before totality. It's a really neat thing. There's so many things to look at. You just sort of have to decide what you're going to do and what you're going to miss. Venus becomes visible well before totality. So you'll see Venus in the sky, and you will see some of the brighter stars in this 4-minute and 20-second eclipse. So it'll be quite cool. Here's some pinhole camera images. A lady at the last eclipse, you can see these nice little crescent suns projected through her hat. And in the middle of the frame, you can see a cheese grater that was making America great again. And on the right-hand side, it's the projected sun through the palm leaves in Australia. That was really, really neat. I love running around and seeing what cool things you can find. Here's the 360 sunrise sunset. This is from Turkey in 2006. And you can just, I think, no, it's a little bit washed out. There it is. I will point it out. You can see Venus right above the tip of the arrow. So it was really quite a cool scene. And then if you're looking for the moon shadow, this is a shot of the moon shadow from Australia. This is early morning eclipse, so the sun is close to the horizon. But this shows you what that shadow looks like. It's a big triangular shadow, wedge-shaped shadow that comes flying at you. And it's great. Looking in binoculars, well, look for those pink prominences sticking out from around the sun. When the moon is as big as it's going to be in this next eclipse, it will actually cover up the prominences. And just before or just after C2 or just before C3, you'll see the prominences sticking out from around the sun or around the moon. And the corona will be spectacular. It's always spectacular. So it's wonderful in binoculars. And this is a shot of the prominences and the chromosphere that we saw in Australia, and with a bit of the Bailey's beads starting to peek out. And right at the top of this image, whoops. Right at the top of this image, if I can find the mouse again. No, I can't seem to find the mouse again. Oh, well. Anyway, this is the corona as seen in the 2017 eclipse, and it was very asymmetrical, but you can see all these brushes coming out from that corona. It was quite spectacular. It was beautiful in binoculars. And this is the Australian, and you can see these brushes that extend out. They were really spectacular. Beautiful view in the binoculars. Well, eclipses can take you all over the globe. They are really neat. You can see all kinds of cool stuff. They take you to places you've never been before, and they give you a chance to explore another part of the world that you may have never seen. And that certainly has happened to me in the 12 eclipses that I've seen to date. You meet some interesting people on the way. I always try to get a bottle of champagne so that everybody can have a sip of champagne after an eclipse. Well, this is the next decade of solar eclipses, and we start out. Let's see if I can find. I don't know where the hell. There it is. Good, good. I found the mouse. This is our eclipse coming up. The next one is in 2026, and it comes down via Iceland, across through Spain, and into the Mediterranean. In 2027, the eclipse starts in the mid-Atlantic, crosses Morocco, Tunisia, and crosses Luxor, Egypt, of all places. Just incredible. And then swings out into the East Indian Ocean. And in 2028, we've got a solar eclipse that comes down from the Indian Ocean down through Northern Australia and out through Sydney. Just amazingly goes right through Sydney. It'll be great. And then the last one of this decade is in 2030, and it crosses South Africa and also north or southeastern Australia. So really, really lots of interesting things that are going to happen for the next 10 years. So anyway, I hope I've been illuminating on some of the topics of photographing an eclipse. I hope those of you who had a good sleep have had a good rest. And anyway, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We have time just for a couple of questions. So if anybody has a question, if you could raise your hand, maybe get the microphone over there so everybody can hear. Anyone? Online, I think we're okay to, if you have a question, to unmute your microphone. We have one here.
A comment. Most of the solar filters that you buy from Seymour Scientific or 1,000 Oaks attach around the outside of your camera lens. So an ordinary telephoto lens is fine for that sort of filter. But I'm going to be using a Nikon P950, and when the lens is retracted, it's buried inside an outer cylinder. So in that case, I have to use a filter that threads into the threads on the outside of the camera. So I've made one of those, but you can also buy them from Amazon. I hate to promote Amazon, but just look up solar filters on Amazon and you get all sorts of possibilities.
Yeah, that particular camera is got a phenomenal focal length range and is well suited for solar eclipses. That's really cool.
Yeah, Nikon P950 goes from 28 to 2,000 millimeters, and it has a moon setting, add a filter, and it's a sun setting.
Wow, awesome. Any other questions?
Anyone online? Okay, well, thank you so much, Murray. Much appreciated. Okay. Just from my own experience, I would recommend if you are imaging through a white light filter, don't forget to take it off during totality. All right. Again, where's our mouse? Okay. Okay. Okay, so Murray says he has a set of notes from that presentation that he will make available online. So we have 8:52. So how about we take about a 10-minute break for some sustenance here, and we'll reconvene here about 9 o'clock and for the last half. Thank you.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all.
Okay. Get things back underway. Just going to juggle up the agenda just a little bit here to keep things moving along. So we'll start the second half of our meeting with this month's book of the month. So if I could have Mr. Zelchik come up, please.
Thanks, Jay, and thanks a lot for the award. The folder too, of course, yeah. I'd like to remind everyone that the compilation of these reports for Nautilus and Clouds include observations from people all over the world, including several observers here in Edmonton. So I share that award with them. Greetings from the Lamplighter Library, from Berta Beltran and I, co-librarians. The library is just off the main entrance to the Star Theater, and it's open before and after the meetings. Last month's book of the month is Galaxies, and you can read the synopsis of that on the website, which Berta takes care of. So that's last month. It's one of the books donated or picked out by Alistair Ling as he was looking through the collection of Mike Noble. So this is actually one of Mike Noble's books. As far as January, the book is Shoot for the Moon by James Donovan. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to walk on the moon. One of the world's greatest technological achievements and a triumph of American spirit and ingenuity, the Apollo 11 mission was a mammoth undertaking involving more than 410,000 men and women dedicated to winning the space race against the Soviets. Filled with the first person behind the scenes details, Shoot for the Moon is a gripping account of the dangers, the challenges, and the sheer determination that defined not only Apollo 11, but also the Mercury and Gemini missions that came before it. From the shock of Sputnik to the heart-stopping final minutes of John Glenn's Mercury flight to that perilous landing on the Sea of Tranquility, when the entire world held its breath while Armstrong and Aldrin battled computer alarms, low fuel, and other problems, James Donovan tells the whole story. Both sweeping and intimate, and based on exhaustive research and dozens of new interviews, Shoot for the Moon is the definitive and thrilling account of our humankind's most extraordinary feats of exploration. This music in the background, is that the music of Cosmos? Well, that's pretty fitting. Nice choice, Frank. So yeah, book of the month for this month. They're both available after the meeting, this one as well as Galaxies. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, our next presenter has presented for us in prior years, and she's compiled another interesting presentation around her experience and work with the SETI Institute. So without further ado, I invite up Lori Walton. Lori, oh, there she is. It's you. And while she's doing that, I'll start her presentation. Here we go. Wish me luck.
Okay, I'll try not to screw this up with the slide forwarding. I'll give it a go here. Thank you very much for providing some time to provide a SETI update and an update on some of the things I've been doing. SETI is a general term to describe the search for intelligent extraterrestrial life in the universe. And much to my horror, I realized when I was preparing the talk, I think my last update was in 2019, which I can't believe it. It was 5 years ago. So anyways, here goes. So the answer is that we actually found anything yet, and of course, the answer is no. I don't think there's even intelligent life on Earth half the time, so we haven't found anything yet. In early October, I attended the International Astronautical Congress in Baku, Azerbaijan. Just like some of you attend eclipses, go to eclipses, which I do as well. I travel and attend space conferences that deal with SETI or have a SETI component. Azerbaijan, I attended the SETI sessions and our annual general meeting of our SETI committee. The buildings in Azerbaijan are spectacular. This is one of the conference area buildings. It also shows I call it the death street with 8 lanes of traffic trying to cross back and forth, going from my Airbnb and trying to cross that traffic. It was a lot like Italy. So the talk I presented in Baku was a history talk about the SETI committee, interesting to probably about 10 people in the world. But it was the third in a series of history talks I've done, one in Jerusalem in 2015 and another in Washington, D.C. in 2019. And since it's been 5 years, there may be some new members who haven't heard the previous updates. My hobby is SETI. I don't actually work at the SETI Institute or anything. I just do this as a hobby, and I contribute as a complete amateur. These are some of my areas of interest. And in addition, I've served on the SETI Permanent Committee of the International Academy of Astronautics for 20 years now. I just figured that out today. A little bit of background for new members who may not know much about SETI. The first modern SETI search took place in 1960 at Green Bank, West Virginia, under the leadership of Frank Drake, who you can see in the photograph here. And after the conference, he developed an equation that may roughly forecast how many intelligent species were out in the Milky Way galaxy. And all of this was exciting at the time because of the dawn of the space age in 1957. And I'm not sure if people know, but Canada became the 3rd country in the world to have a spacecraft in orbit in 1962. Alouette. Here's a book for Mark. In the late 1950s and early 60s, there was quite a bit of work on exobiology by NASA and other groups, including the Soviet Union. In the 1960s, the New York Times reported that Soviet scientists thought an anomalous radio source could be a beacon from a mega civilization. It turned out to be a quasar, CTA 201, and I think the other one was 102. So that showed the world just how focused the Soviets were at the time in searching for extraterrestrial intelligent life. And Canada completed one of the first SETI surveys in 1972. And by 1974, humanity was not only listening for and searching for signs of advanced technology in the galaxy, but signals were actually sent. This is the message sent from Arecibo Radio Observatory in Puerto Rico. The message was composed by Frank Drake, and it was blasted into space. I think it was in around 2007. I was in Puerto Rico for a conference and for the 10th anniversary of the movie Contact, and Frank Drake and Jill Tarter and others were there, and we were able to have a nice tour of Arecibo afterwards. And I'm really happy I was able to see it before it fell into disarray. So the committee that I serve on was struck in 1974. It has a very broad mandate. These are some of the areas of interest, looking at how stars form, planets, the origin of life, evolution of life, complex life, and the emergence of technological civilizations. And the mandate is even further because the committee deals with post-detection issues as well. And what's important is that the committee, under the auspices of the IAA, that provides a conduit to the United Nations to inform of any matters of interest in regards to SETI. So the 1970s were good and bad for SETI research. The world was disappointed, of course, when Viking landed on Mars, and despite the beautiful photos and data, there was not an immediate indication of life. But all of that changed in the late 1970s with the discovery of these black smokers on the ocean floor, these hydrothermal vents spewing out toxic metals, copper, lead, zinc, gold, silver, cobalt, in an environment with no oxygen and where life should not exist. So this got everybody thinking about the origin of life and perhaps the possibility of life, and maybe intelligent life, could be broader than what people originally thought. And life can form, life can evolve, and then life can be obliterated. This came about in the late 1970s as well, with identification of the Cretaceous Cretaceous tertiary impact event with the identification of the iridium layer. So in essence, an asteroid struck the Gulf of Mexico and generated an event that led to the extinction of lots of species, either that or volcanoes in India, depending on who you believe. And we saw recently Chelyabinsk, and we have seen Jupiter pummeled by different impact events. So the last number in the Drake equation deals with the lifetime of a technologically advanced civilization. So this is obviously a major factor in our search for SETI and how we narrow down where to look. Not to mention the potential impact to ourselves. The SETI committee by 1986 started work on post-detection issues. And this came about because of the discovery of pulsars in 1967. The scientists involved had once again an anomalous radio signal, did not know what it was, and at some point they seriously thought they might have detected a signal from an extraterrestrial civilization. They did not know what to do or who to contact. By 1989, the SETI committee prepared what we call the Declaration of Principles. This is a very simple document aimed to radio astronomers mainly. It outlines best practices. You go out, you get your candidate signal, you contact your friends at other observatories to confirm and verify the detection. You gather the data, you inform various science groups, and then the Secretary General of the United Nations. And if you are the discoverer of the signal, then you have the privilege of announcing the discovery. In theory, that all sounds great, but humans are humans, and this item number 8 has been controversial ever since, and it remains so to this day. This has to do with transmissions from Earth. You may recall the message from Arecibo, a deliberate transmission from Earth to outer space, and also the idea of if there is some sort of technological leakage or something interpreted, who replies on behalf of Earth. In any case, the declaration was submitted and presented to the United Nations by the late 1990s and by the late 1980s. And by 1990, We had 30 years of SETI searches. So this was the focus of my talk in Baku. NASA was funding a $100 million high-profile SETI search. I actually have this Life magazine at my house. My dining room is essentially the Canadian Centre for SETI Archives. It was thrilling to read about the scientists working and the projects. It started in October 1992, and a year later, US Congress shut down the whole thing. The scientists involved had to raise private money, and the project was resurrected as Project Phoenix, administered by the SETI Institute. So that put a damper on SETI, I guess, searches and impetus throughout the 90s until the discovery of extrasolar planets. And as you can imagine, this had profound impact to determining where to look and where to focus radio telescope searches. We've had many great talks here at the Edmonton Center about extrasolar planets, exoplanets, including even high school students looking for exoplanets. Fantastic. And the SETI committee continued work on post-detection work. And then this is the photo that changed things in SETI. The Hubble deep field photo showing, you know, thousands, millions, stars, galaxies in an area that should be empty space. NASA, which was very conservative by 1998 then, announced an astrobiology strategy to look for life, but they were very careful to say not intelligent life, just microbial life. But it was something. And by 1999, I think a lot of you probably ran this program on your computers. SETI at home developed it at Berkeley in California. Fantastic program. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, it went into hibernation. I don't know if you can read this. Let's see. These are the servers, and this sort of thing drives me crazy. We have ready to be discarded. This is from Eric, who ran the program. A couple of thousand DLT tapes, whatever that is, containing the raw data from the first 6 years of the SETI program, et cetera, et cetera. These tapes will probably be discarded. This drives me crazy. One of my other hobbies is to go down to the SETI Institute on my holidays and actually sort through some of their archival information and data. The photo on the left is actually Jill Tarter's bookcase with all her raw data, old computer files and everything from some of the SETI searches. I really believe these things should be preserved and documented, but that doesn't seem to happen very much. Anyways, that's one of my pet peeves. From 2000 to 2015, the SETI, global SETI efforts were somewhat static. There were searches carried out, lots of good thinking, SETI Institute, Berkeley, other places. NASA continued looking for biosignatures. And especially after the financial crash in 2008, there was very little funding. Even the Allen Telescope Array in California shut down for lack of funding. And I think I presented to you the last time in 2015, everything changed. $100 million directed to SETI research for 10 years. At this news conference, we had Stephen Hawking, Frank Drake, and others make this wonderful announcement. So basically, Breakthrough Listen, administered through Berkeley, bought radio telescope time at Parks and at Green Bank, and they have initiated projects and partnerships basically all around the world. The number of professors, graduate students, student interns being hired and paid actual money to work on SETI is skyrocketed. and the number of projects has just grown exponentially. Will this make a difference? I think Jill Tarter calculated that before Breakthrough Listen, if you took Earth and an ocean, we would have maybe looked in terms of frequency and everything else to about the size of a glass of water in terms of the space to look for signs of technology or extraterrestrial life. After Breakthrough Listen, that will expand to about the size of a swimming pool, apparently. There's still a long ways to go. So has Breakthrough Listen found anything? No. They had a candidate signal in 2019 from Parks. They were monitoring Proxima Centauri and came up with something. They go through a very rigorous verification process. Plus everything is dumped on the internet. So any of you can download the data and look for yourself. So far, all of their candidate signals have been terrestrial in origin. They're doing tons of projects all over the place. Here's just a small group of some of them. A project looking at the galactic center, looking at lots of stars, looking for different anomalies there. Another project they're sponsoring or partnered with, sending a small telescope up into space to monitor the Alpha Centauri system and its exoplanets. Breakthrough Listen partners with the Meerkat Array in South Africa. And more esoteric, carried out infrared searches, looking at 16,000 galaxies, data mining. The fellow who headed this is actually the chair of our committee. He's a radio astronomer who does SETI on the side. And amazingly enough, by 2018, with all this, NASA decided they were interested in technosignatures, and they asked for a white paper and sponsored a conference. It's really important to have a multidisciplinary approach. You can't just have radio astronomers and engineers and computer people working. You need different viewpoints. This is a member of the SETI committee, Daniela. She convinced the European Space Agency to have one of their orbiters in Mars send back a design message. She's an artist. Back to Earth. So far, it's been downloaded, but I don't think anybody has been able to decipher this message yet. And there's lots of other things happening. Penn State is becoming a nice little SETI center. Jason Wright is teaching the first undergraduate SETI course, which is good news. And I tried to make this really quick. There was kind of too much to describe, and I'm sorry about that, but thank you very much, and I'll answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Do we have any questions? Anyone? For Lori?
Well, it's a wrap then.
Well, we have one over here, and I'd also say anyone,
Beyond 2025?
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. Actually, it was at the conference in Paris last year, the rep of Breakthrough Listen. He's actually a brigadier general. Pete Warden announced that the 100 million will be, go on for another 10 years. So there'll be another 100 million. Oh, hi, Doug.
hang on, I'm gonna get the mic there.
First, I'm always impressed by what you know and what you do on behalf of SETI. So I always congratulate you, my dear. The other question is that one signal that got everybody, the wow signal.
Oh, yeah.
What is it in that stream of 6 little symbols that got everybody excited?
I'm not I'm not very technical on that, but there was a SETI search underway. I think it was Ohio State. This is really sad, but I have a piece of the Big Ear radio telescope in my dining room. It was dismantled to make way for a golf course at some point. But anyways, that was being monitored and the signal was being typed on that paper. And the person there, his name was Jerry something, circled it and wrote, wow. And there have been endless efforts going back to try to monitor that space. There have been SETI searches, books written about it, everything else, and no one's been able to reproduce it. So because of that, you cannot say that it was actually a signal from some extraterrestrial civilization.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lori. Much appreciated.
There's
Thank-
one more here if there's time.
All right. It's got to be quick, Kent. We're running out of time.
Okay.
You said that there was a signal sent back from Mars, an artificial, something we generated, and nobody'd been able to decipher it yet.
Yep.
Is that right?
I think so. I should email her and ask, but as far as I know, you can go to the website. It's called,
So basically my question is,
there it is, a sign in space.
if we can't decipher something that we created ourselves, maybe we should do some work on learning how to do that.
Oh, I don't think we can decipher anything. For years, I've gone to these things and there have been endless attempts to decipher certain things and invariably they fail. In fact, the whole Arecibo message was reproduced at MIT one time as a display with empty glass bottles either filled with water to represent 1 in binary code or empty to represent 0. But do you think anybody at MIT actually recognized that? To them, it was an art display, even though it was a direct reproduction of the Arecibo message, and it remained, unrecognized. So that is a real challenge, and that's really good to have people like Daniela and others involved to construct these messages so we can practice.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Lori. Much appreciated. Thank Lori again for her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. In the home stretch, I've done the best I can to defer the dry stuff. However, we do have some money motions that we have to get through. And just let me get that going. Okay. Final stretch. So over to our Astro-Imaging Corner and our Astro Imager of the Year. Hopefully is still there. Can we have Abdur up?
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. So I'm going to share my screen. So if someone could let me know if they can see my screen there.
We can see it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. Move this bar out of the way. Okay, there we go. Okay, so welcome to Astro-Imaging Corner number 132. So this is a special edition where we're going to look at the year 2023 in review. And I went through every single image that was submitted by the members over the entire 2023 year, well, up to November 2023. And I picked my favorite image from each person. In some cases, my favorite 2 images when I couldn't choose, or the images they submitted were in completely different categories, such as deep sky and then planetary. But in general, I picked one image from every one that I liked the most. And again, this is not about the best image, it's just my particular favorite image. So let's get started. My first image here, this is from Al Pankratz. And this was an image of the planet Mars coming out from the top right, about 1:30 o'clock position from the moon. And this was actually right at the beginning of 2023 is when I had received this one. It was obtained through a 10-inch Dob using eyepiece projection. And this was multiple stacked video frames were then processed using PIPP, AutoStacker, and Registax to create this image. And Al says that in addition to Mars, this particular shot is interesting because due to libration, the eastern part of the moon that is hidden or in the shadow for most of the year had rotated into view. So yeah, very nice image. Thank you, Al. Next image from Alan Hobbs. This was my personal favorite image that Alan had sent in. And this, of course, is the beautiful North America Nebula. And this image was an amalgamation of two astrophotos taken a little over a year apart of the same location. First was 9 subs of 60 seconds each. And the second was an image taken later on, a year later at Black Nugget Lake. And the two astrophotos were processed using different techniques. And when added together, they created an astrophoto with higher contrast and brighter nebulosity. And these were shot with the RASC 8 and the ASI 2600 MC camera using an Optlong L-enhanced filter. And processing was done in PixInsight and Photoshop. So thank you, Al. Beautiful shot. Next image that I had received in 2023, that was one of my favorites. This one is from Alistair Ling, and this is a wide field shot from Alistair showing a couple of interesting objects. And my favorite is the Leonid meteor that's going right through the frame there. And to the right of the Leonid meteor, you can see the Andromeda Galaxy. Right up here, you see Messier 45, the Pleiades star cluster, the Hades, and of course, that's the double cluster right at the very top of the frame. So again, nice shot, Alistair. And this one was actually taken with a 10-year-old camera with a wide-angle kit lens, so you don't need to be using the latest gear to take interesting astrophotos. Up next was an image from Arnold Rivera. This was of the southern solar eclipse in 2023. And this is a view of the corona mid-eclipse. And I believe this was the eclipse in Australia that Arnold had gone to. So very nice. Up next is an image from Brian Martin. And this is the Rosette Nebula. And this was taken in H-alpha along with the RGB for the stars. And this was a total of 6.5 hours of shots using LRGB filters and then an H-alpha filter separately, and then it was combined. And this was taken with an ASI 1600 with a 4-inch refractor. And and Brian says that the concentration of late O stars in the center of the cluster, as well as a number of lovely amber, red, late K and early M giants in this field make it interesting. So beautiful shot there, Brian. And one more from Brian, because it was in a completely different category, so I just had to include it, was this beautiful shot of the sun taken with the Sol X. And this was taken April 15, 2023 on a 70mm refractor and a Player One Neptune camera. And the image is a scan in H-alpha using a spectral resolution of 0.1 angstrom. So absolutely beautiful detail. Up next is my favorite image from Craig Sherriss. This is the Pelican Nebula. And this was taken with a 130mm stellar view refractor and the Player One Poseidon C camera. And this is a total of 13.5 hours of exposures. And the Pelican Nebula, also known as IC 5070 and IC 5067, is a vast cloud of gas and dust stretching over 10 light years in diameter. And it's located near another famous nebula, the North America Nebula, and is separated from it by a dark molecular cloud known as the Cygnus Wall. And what I like about this image is the absolutely excellent processing and just the overall sharpness and detail. So great job there, Craig. And one more for Craig is Comet C 2022 E3, also Comet ZTF. And this was when it was at a distance of 43 million kilometers. And the comet itself is only about 1 kilometer across, or the nucleus of the comet, but the shell of gas around can be millions of kilometers across. And this was the morning of January 29, 2023. And this was 1 hour of exposures with a 80 millimeter refractor and the ASI 2600 MC camera. So great job there with the processing as well. Up next is an image from DAISY. This is Aurora with Jupiter at the bottom right. And this was just one raw photo taken with an iPhone 13 Pro Max at 26 millimeter focal length and f1.5. So beautiful composition there. Up next is an image from Dave Mussel. This is the Eagle Nebula. And of course, it's one of my favorite objects in the sky. So I just had to include this one. And this was taken by Dave in New Mexico. And this version is a cropped version of the original, which was quite wide. And this is enhanced to highlight basically the structure in the nebula using Blur Exterminator. And it's featured in the famous Hubble Space Telescope image entitled Pillars of Creation, and it was recently re-imaged by the James Webb Space Telescope. And it reveals thousands of hot young protostars nestled deep in the nebular structures that are visible in the new JWST image. So again, great shot, Dave. Up next is my favorite image from Denis. And this was actually taken when we were camped side by side at the Northern Prairie Star Party. This is a combination of RGB and then H-alpha, S2, and O3 filtered images. And this was with a 132 millimeter refractor at f7. And the guider used for this one was the Z61 with a corrector and a Player One Mars camera. So again, absolutely beautiful processing. And on the left, you can actually see what we call the Soap Bubble Nebula, a very, very faint nebula that was discovered fairly recently because of how faint it is, especially compared to the brighter Crescent Nebula. So great job, Denis. Up next is an image of the Andromeda Galaxy from Jerry Shillabeer. And this was taken at BNLO in late 2020, but submitted to me in 2023, taken with a 4-inch refractor and processed in Star Tools. And it was captured in Nina and stacked in DSS, and a total of 50 exposures of 30 seconds each, or a total of 25 minutes of exposures. So great job there, Jerry. Next image is from Hans. This is the beautiful Rosette Nebula in narrowband, taken with a one-shot color camera from Sherwood Park, and surprisingly from a Bortle 7 location, very much like where I imaged from. And Hans used the Optolong L Extreme filter for the HA and O3, and a Baudelaire 7 nanometer hydrogen beta filter, narrowband filter for the S2. And this was with an SCAR FRA 300 refractor with an ASI 2600 Pro color camera. And this was acquired using 5 minutes subs for a total of 2 hours with the L Extreme and 90 minutes with the S2 filter. And the stars were added from an earlier broadband acquisition after removing the stars from the narrowband stack using StarNet++. Again, phenomenal detail, Hans. Up next is one more image from Hans that I just had to include because of the sheer depth of detail visible in the background of the Dumbbell Nebula that we don't often see. And this was taken from Sherwood Park, Alberta, with Hans Edge HD 9.25 refractor with a 0.7 reducer and the same ASI 2600 MC camera. And this was again from a Bortle 7 to 8 zone, and using the Optolong L Extreme filter for both HA and O3 and a Baudelaire S2 filter for the S2. And total was 4 hours of exposure time with the L Extreme filter and about 1 hour for the RGB stars. And it was processed in PixInsight. So great job, Hans. Up next is an image from Jonathan Porter. This was of the Great Orion Nebula. And he is an RASC member who became interested in visual astronomy in 2020 and started getting into deep sky astrophotography shortly after that. And Jonathan had told me that this image really got him hooked. And it was taken in January 2023 from his backyard in Edmonton. And this was with a Canon EOS R DSLR, or mirrorless camera, unmodified astronomic CLS filter, and an 85mm refractor. So yeah, great job there. And I hope to see more images from you, Jonathan, for 2024. Up next is my favorite image from Josephine, and this is the Bubble Nebula region. And you can see the Bubble Nebula, I believe just above it is Messier 52, the cluster, a couple of little ones all around. There's just a lot of nebulosity and a lot of detail going on in that section of the sky. So that's one of the reasons I really love this region, and it's a beautiful region to look at visually as well through an eyepiece. So great job there, Josephine. And this was taken with a Nikon D5300 and a White Cat refractor on the Star Adventurer, and stacked in DSS and processed in Cyril and GIMP. So great job. Up next is an image from Kevin Waddle. This is the Sol Nebula. And this is a luminance stack with just a histogram transfer stretch and then converted to JPEG with no other processing. So great job on that, Kevin. Our next image is from Mark Zalchik. This is a smoky sunset above Edmonton. Yeah, you can see a great image of the sun there. It looks like there were no sunspots at that particular time, but yeah, great sunset colors. Up next is an image from Murray Paulson. This is a wide field of the comet that we had seen in 2023. I can't quite remember which comet it was. Might have been ZTF, but this was with a William Optics GT71 refractor, which was wide enough to get both Mars on the right side and the comet in one frame. And this was a single 30-second exposure, and out from west of St. Albert. So great job there, Murray. One more from Murray was of the Southern Eclipse in 2023. And this eclipse lasted 56 to 57 seconds based on Murray's measurements. And Murray was in Exmouth, Australia at the time, and the sky was absolutely clear. And according to Murray, he used the 71mm William Optics refractor on an equatorial tracking mount for the duration of the eclipse. And the camera used was a Canon 80D controlled by an Arduino, as Murray had shown in his video. So again, absolutely amazing. And that big prominence to the left of it around the 10 o'clock position, or actually there's a big prominence around the 1 o'clock position over here that's floating about 220,000 kilometers above the sun's surface. So great job, Murray. My favorite image from Ray for 2023 was of Comet 2022 E3, and this was taken at Blackfoot Lake staging area just east of Edmonton. And this is the comet that we won't be seeing again for approximately 50,000 years. And this was shot with a QHY 367 camera attached to a NASCAR 300mm refractor using 2-minute exposures. So absolutely beautiful detail. And you can see the two tails of the comet are actually, yeah, there's one tail going straight in front of it, and then there's one behind it. So those are the dust tail and the ion tail. So great job, Ray. My favorite image from Richard Covey was the California Nebula. This was a total of only 2 hours of exposures using a Skywatcher 72 ED refractor and the IMX 571 based Rising Cam camera. And it was used, APT was used to capture the image, and PixInsight was used for processing. So great job, Richard. Next image is from Rick Bram. This was the partial solar eclipse in 2023. And this was with a Canon 5D Mark IV camera and a telephoto lens at 300mm and a 2x Canon extender. And Rick was using a 1000 Oaks solar filter for this. Just a hint for anyone planning to image the next eclipse. Remember the solar filters. And this was a stack of 12 images stacked in AutoStacker and processed in Photoshop. Next, I have an image from Stephen Portillo. This is a Mars-Venus-Jupiter conjunction, and they're visible right in the back over here. And this was taken on the morning of March 2nd. Oh, there we go, March 2nd, 2023, with a Nikon J1 camera. So thank you for that, Stephen. Up next is an image from Warren Finley, and I think this image represents kind of what I think of when I see an image from Warren. It tells a whole story just in this one shot, and this was taken the night of March 14, 2023. And Warren said that he was hoping to observe with his scope, but after setting up and getting his first object, which was NGC 4549 in the field of view, and not being able to see it, he looked up at the sky and realized there was a dim, diffuse aurora wrecking his view. So he waited a while, and during which time the aurora picked up. So he packed up his scope, switched to photography mode, and got this east of Edmonton. And the exposure was 8 seconds at ISO 3200 and using a 24mm f2.8 lens. So absolutely beautiful shot, Warren. One more from Warren that I just had to include. This shot shows Warren celebrating after having observed the last of his Herschel 2500 objects on the night of April 16, 2023. And Warren says it only took 22 years, which is pretty good for that catalog, considering some of the faint stuff that's on there. And Warren took this self-portrait just after completing the last object on the list. And this photo is a single capture of 30 seconds with ambient light at f1.8. And Warren says it's a little bit blurry because it's hard to stay perfectly still for 30 seconds, and lots of air glow can be seen near the horizon of the photo. And according to Warren, the glass contains iced tea, not wine, unfortunately, as he finds booze and stumbling around in the dark are not a good mix, especially with a big telescope next to you. So great job, and congratulations on finally completing that list this year, Warren. Up next is my favorite image from Tom Owen. This is of the great Hercules cluster, Messier 13. And at the bottom left of the frame, you can see NGC 6207, which is a faint galaxy. And actually above it, between that galaxy and M13, you can see an even fainter, tiny little galaxy. Not even sure what the NGC number of that one is, but I have observed it on a couple of occasions from a dark side visually with a large telescope. And this image was taken at Pigeon Lake on April 14, 2023, using a TSA 120 refractor and a QSI 683 camera. And I absolutely love the color in these images. In this image, especially those bright red supergiant stars in the cluster. So they really stand out. So great job, Tom, and I hope to see a lot more of your images this year. Up next is a shot from Zed Lorca. This is the aurora taken with a Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra from Edmonton. And this was from the night of May 5, 2023, and edited in Lightroom. So great shot of that aurora spiral, Zed. And up next is one of my favorite images from this year. And the reason I liked this one is because it was very, very detailed. It had about 10 times as much detail as my previous attempt at this galaxy. And in this particular image, you can see hundreds of individual nebulae in the Andromeda galaxy, some of them much, much larger than our own Orion Nebula. You can see, I estimate over 100 globular clusters in there as well, some of which I've been attempting to look at visually, such as this one here, which is G279 at magnitude 15.4. My most recent attempt was not successful, but my friend Eric was able to see it visually from just south of Calgary at the same time. And then right above over here, that's G280. If anybody wants to try looking at that one visually, it is much brighter at magnitude 14.2, I believe. So there are countless nebulae, countless individual stars in this image as well. that are visible in the larger size image. So that's one of my favorite. And this was taken with an 8-inch refractor and an ASI 294 camera on an EQ6R mount. And this was a total of 28 hours of data, although I've since made a newer image with 53 hours of data that is sharper, but I haven't shared that one yet. So that'll be for another time. And one more image that I just had to share of the solar system. This was of the sun from March 2023, shot using my little Coronado PSD 40 millimeter solar scope and a QHY 462 guide camera. And the reason I liked it was this absolutely humongous prominence on the top left edge of the sun around the 11 o'clock position, and this bright region near the very bottom. So yeah, that is it for the year 2023. And any images that anyone has submitted in December or January 2023 so far, I will include them in the February 2024 presentation for Astro-Imaging Corner. So rest assured, I will be sharing those soon. And again, a huge thank you to everyone who sent in images in 2023. I enjoy looking at every single one. And even if I don't reply to every email that I receive, just rest assured I do read every email, and then I do look at every single image, and yeah, I look forward to it every time. So thank you again, and back to you, Jay.
All right, thank you very much, Abdur. How about a hand to Abdur and everybody's images? The quality is mind-boggling. Okay, we're into the home stretch. We have a couple of pretty important announcements, so I'd appreciate if everybody could just hang around. I'd like to invite Dave Mussel up to the podium, please.
Thanks, Jay. I'll be really brief. The heart and soul and hands and feet of this organization are the volunteers. And it's all the volunteers that do the work every day and every month and every year in this organization that makes it work. And it makes sure that we have managed finances and well-staffed events at various public events around Edmonton and outside of Edmonton. And so I just want to, first of all, thank all the volunteers for their work over this past year. It's been an amazing year. It's been a tough year too because of COVID. But I also want to take this moment to announce that we're making some changes to the way that volunteers are managed. And so our organization is growing. It's becoming more recognized in the region. And that means more and more requests for support from communities like Redwater, Jasper, and others. And and we also have the BNLO and that amazing new telescope. And so in order to help us maintain these resources and these assets that we have, and also address all the coming needs that are being expressed by these communities, and also just to manage our own affairs, we're making some changes to the way we're doing volunteer management. And so there'll be a number of announcements and pieces of information coming out over the next month. I'll save the details for a possible note in Stardust. A number of you are going to be getting emails regarding this, and it'll be your opportunity to register into this new program. We're adopting, just for quick information here, the same system that Telus World of Science uses. It's called Volgistics, and it's a database-driven system that allows us to manage the schedules, to enable good communication and good coordination between the people that run these events and all that pool of volunteers that help out and that are available to support it. And so I'll encourage you all to check your email and to watch Stardust for further information about this. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Yeah, and we'll also, we've had some talk about putting on a volunteer workshop. So we know some folks have mentioned that they're not really sure what is expected of them out at outreach events and that sort of thing. And so we're going to put together a workshop that maybe an hour in length, just to describe what what happens during outreach, school outreaches or public outreach events, and just, you know, describe what you can expect, and hopefully help us recruit a few more volunteers for some very worthy outreach events. Just one more announcement. Jeff, do you want to come up and talk about? Not going to leave it to me, are you? No, I know you weren't.
Jay sent out a note to all our members a couple days ago. Yeah. Sturgeon County is putting on a Winterfest celebration on Friday, January 19th, running from 3 till 8 o'clock. It's at Cardiff Park, which is north of St. Albert, southeast of Morinville. They've asked us if we could come by around 5-ish and set up a couple telescopes and possibly do a constellation walk with the people that are out there. So if you're interested in participating, give me a shout. My email's on the website. For the constellation walk, because we'll be using green laser pointers, you need the green laser pointer training up to date. Mine is not up to date. So yeah, if we could get maybe 4 people, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, so really the last items are up on the list. Our observers meeting coming up this Wednesday, so hosted by our own John Stolte or Berta Beltran. What's up over Edmonton? Again, Jeff's masterpiece, so January 31st, 7:30. And outreach event that Jeff just referred to on January 19th. Next monthly meeting is February 12th. And we have a possible Astro-Imaging Cafe on February 7th, hosted by our own, one of our own members. So just before we call it a night, I did want to ask, you know, we give the awards and that sort of thing, but there still are quite a few folks that do spend their time and effort supporting the center. And so I just wanted to give 2 quick acknowledgements. One again is to Frank Florian and his daughter Katie. They've been supporting these meetings forever, and they've been doing a wonderful job. So can we please thank them for their time and effort? And then also Joanne Osborne Paulson. She brings those the food and everything every meeting or whatever, and set up ready to go just when we need it. So that's great. So thank you, Joanne, for all your efforts. Okay, that's all I have. I thank you very much for staying and going through some of those fairly dry parts, but appreciate it, and Happy New Year to everyone. And I call the January 2024 meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.